Good morning, everyone. This is, as many months become designated, this is Native American Heritage Month. And it may not be the way tribes want to be described, but that's the way the president determined that we would call this month a time to celebrate and honor the history of the indigenous peoples of this land. And we do start today with acknowledging that we're on the traditional lands of the Puyallup tribe, where the people have stewarded the land from time immemorial. We also recognize that this acknowledgement is just a tiny step in toward true allyship, and we're committed to uplifting the voices and experiences and histories of indigenous peoples here and beyond. One of the things we're fortunate about in Washington State is that the poet laureate for 2021 is from an indigenous tribe in Washington, Rena Priest, and she I wanted to share as a way to center us this morning on our tasks. She has written a pretty powerful poem, I believe, called The Index. It's about a minute long, and we'll follow that by a few norms for our meeting and then introductions of new people. So here is The Index by Rena Priest. In the beginning, there was darkness, then a bunch of other stuff, and lots of people. Some things were said and loosely interpreted, or maybe things were not communicated clearly. Regardless, there's always been an index. That thing about the meek, how we shall inherit the earth, that was a promise made in a treaty at the dawn of time, agreed upon in primordial darkness, and documented in the spiritual record. The nature of the agreement was thus: the world will seemingly be pushed beyond capacity. A new planet will be, quote, discovered 31 light years away. Space travel will advance rapidly, making the journey feasible. The ice sheets will melt. Things will get ugly. The only way to leave will be to buy a ticket, and tickets will be priced at exactly the amount that can be accrued by abandoning basic humanity. The index will show how you came by your fortune. If you murdered, trafficked, exploited, or vulnerable, stole, embezzled, poisoned, cheated, swindled, or otherwise subdued nature to come by wealth great enough to afford passage to the new earth. If your ancestors did these things and you've done nothing to benefit from their crimes, yet do nothing to atone through returning inherited wealth to the greater good, you shall be granted passage. It was agreed, the meek shall stay, the powerful shall leave, and it all shall start again. The meek shall inherit the earth, but what shall we do with it but set about putting aside our meekness? So thanks to Rena Priest for telling us to set aside our meekness and work on our goal to end homelessness. So here we are. There are now 43 of us together, and we have generally announced that to make this work well for us as a meeting, that we keep ourselves on mute when we're not speaking, and that we stop our video if we're doing other activities that might be distracting. Also, we have found using the chat for sharing information to be extremely valuable. So to use that as a communication forum, talk to each other during the meeting when you wish to, share your information there, bring updates, add to something that you wish you'd said. We save these, and you can also save them yourself at the end of the meeting. So if we have our community norms and our Zoom norms that Rob has just placed in the chat. Mostly we want to be collaborative as we speak, and to speak up when you have something to say and to step back when you've said something. So we have a lot of folks that need to share the time. So with that, I'd like to invite anybody who's new today with us or coming back after being away a while to let us know you're here. And if you're associated with the group, to let us know that so we can be networking with you. So you can just unmute yourself and go ahead and speak if you wish.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me. My name is Nikki Feldhammer. I am the new Community Relations Director for Virginia Mason Franciscan Health, based here in Tacoma, Pierce County. I just started a week and a half ago, so I'm learning the ropes, but I'm happy to be here and look forward to learning more about the wonderful work that this group does. Thank you.
Welcome, Nikki. Thanks for being here.
Hello, I hope you guys could hear me. I did not have internet at my house this morning, so I am racing to the office to join back into the Zoom meeting. My name is Clara Lee. I am with Associated Ministry. My position is a housing stabilization program specialist, and I look forward to getting to know everyone. Thank you.
Welcome, Clara, and hope you get that internet fixed. So welcome. All right, then Rob, I think we'll leave it back to you.
All right. Well, thank you. Welcome to new folks today, and to those who are joining us for the first time in a while. It's great to see everybody this morning, up to 50 people in the room now. The first regular standing item on our agenda is updates about what's happening on the streets. So this week on the streets section of the meeting is an opportunity to share with a larger group what you see happening with those who are currently living outdoors across Tacoma and Pierce County. So if you have anything that needs that you've identified, anything to share, please raise your hand and I'll call on you now. All right, phone number ending in 5552.
Hi, it's Sarah Williamson with Tacoma Rescue Mission. I just wanted to do a quick update that for the month of October, we successfully housed 21 individuals, 13 individuals from the men's side and 8 women from the women's shelter.
Thank you, that's fantastic news. Anyone else with updates from what they're seeing on the streets, other than obviously it's been very wet and windy and not a pleasant time to be outside? Maureen?
I don't know if anybody from Vallejo or Goodwill might be on to talk about the new shelter. Sounds like a sanctioned encampment in Fife. The 10 people in tents right now. Tiny houses apparently coming at some point.
Yeah, this is Sherry with Vallejo.
Oh, good. Good.
Hi, Sherry.
Norman has been doing a wonderful job, our Director of Mission Services, and working with the City of Fife this last month. But we've been working with them for, gosh, the last 6 months. After our Hire pilot hit the media, they reached out and they said, wow, we love this program. Can you bring it in? And we, over the course of a couple months in working with them, their Parks Department, Megan, actually said, well, we've kind of designed something similar, and we dove into it and they designed a really great program. So we're really here just acting as a consultant to empower them as their own jurisdiction to develop their own program, which includes housing and income and case management for 10 individuals. So we're super excited to be here empowering them to do it in their own way. Yeah.
Fantastic, Sherry. And Kelly, do you have anything you wanted to share regarding that as well? I see you just came on camera.
I know, right? It's a busy morning. Yeah, this is just, I'm so excited to be a part of this. I know I saw a lot of your reactions on Facebook last night, and I think that's how we got around to talking about this morning. But Goodwill, you know, we've been working to really figure out how we could bring digital technology and kind of career path training and career readiness, financial education to our unhoused population. And we are able to do that now through a laptop loaner program. So yesterday was a good example of it was our first time doing that. And we had 10 laptops ready and, you know, got this, this group through like a digital assessment and a lot of enrollment. So this is just a really amazing partnership for us. And we're also able to utilize WIOA funding in one area and BFET funding in another area. But we really figured out how to make it all work, and just really thankful for Vallejo Norman and Sherry for bringing us into this. And I'm super excited about this pilot, as we'll follow these people for the next year. And it's amazing. It's amazing to see the community working together. And I talked with Tim from the city of the Fife this morning, and he said the same thing. He goes, it's really cool how the 10 people, there's actually 11 in the pilot. There's 2 couples, but how just amazing it is that they're really leaning on each other and pumping each other up every morning to get up and go to work and go to classes. So for me, I think this is one of these things we've been talking about with the coalition for such a long time. And certainly as this carries on, I mean, it should be something that we replicate, and excited to be a part of it. Excited for Goodwill, Career Team Vallejo, and the City of Fife to just really partner together on this. Is amazing.
Thank you, Kelly. So anyone, Maureen, your hand's still up. Is that just from before?
Yes, sorry.
No problem at all. So anyone else with things that they would like to share from what they're seeing on the streets this week? One open question: have folks been out to the Evergreen encampment and seen what kind of progress has been made there? I know I haven't had a chance to swing by there yet. Patricia?
I actually just got off with the LEC and Jaja Floyd, and she said they basically cleared. There's 4 people left. They have them all over the place in motels, motel vouchers, tiny homes, shelters. There's 4 people left. She told the people this is just, I didn't get all the details, to make sure when they're in the motels to utilize the phone to make sure they get their next spot. They're also in some pallet shelter, the pallet shelter area too. So that literally was just 2 minutes ago that she said that, and she's right there right now trying to clear them. So help the next 4 people. One person she believes is going to be resistant to leaving. And then a few people did just move like up the street or something, just so FYI. So anyway, thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, thank you, Patricia. All right. So one last call if anybody else wants to share any information about what they've seen on the streets this week. All right. So thank you to each of you who's been able to share today, and for the good work that's going on. We know that the people on the street appreciate it as well. So our next item in the agenda, we'll actually turn the floor over to Patricia. She wants to share her own story regarding domestic violence and the impact on homelessness, a personal perspective. So Patricia, just let me know when you're ready for me to share slides.
You can put the slides up. I switched it out a little bit. I would like to share my personal story, but I put some facts in because I went up.
Fantastic.
And I'll share my personal story maybe at another time. It just wasn't right now.
That's fine.
My presentation is women and intimate violence because I'm going to give you some statistics through these periods to see the dynamics that show up on the street. These statistics came from the national database and also the National Coalition, which keeps some of the statistics. Okay, you can go to the next slide. 1 in 3 women have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner, and this includes a range of behaviors, like an example of slapping, shoving, and pushing. That's 1 in 3 women. Okay, next slide. 1 in 4 women have been victims of severe physical violence. So that's like beating, burning, strangling by an intimate partner in their lifetime. That's 1 in 4. Okay, next one. 15% of the intimate partner violence accounts for 15% of all the violent crimes that you see. These statistics are of a national level. I was trying to get the Pierce County levels. Okay, next one. 19% of the domestic violence involves a weapon. Okay, next one. 500% with the presence of a gun for domestic violence increases the risk of homicide. You have seen these on national levels. Next one, please. 34%, so that's 34% of the people who are injured by an intimate partner receive medical care for their injuries. Think about those that do not attend to the medical injuries or have no intervention in the point of their physical injuries. Thank you. Not to mention mental. Depression and suicide behavior. Domestic victimization is correlated with the higher rate of depression and suicide behavior. You see this on the street when people come out of domestic violence. Women between the ages of 18 and 24 are the most commonly abused by the intimate partner. Think of the start of youth right outside of teenage years, that this is what they start with. Next one, please. The economic impact. Between 21 to 60% of those victims of intimate partner violence lose their jobs due to the reasons stemming from abuse. It's actually more in the higher range than lower. One way or another, they definitely miss work, and it often leads to lose their job, or they can't lose their job, or shame and guilt. Thank you. Next one. The physical and mental impact. There's like a physical, mental, and sexual reproduction health effects that have been linked to intimate partner violence, including like adolescent pregnancy. You see that with younger pregnancies, unattended pregnancies, miscarriage, stillbirths, intrauterine hemorrhage, nutritional deficiencies, abdominal pain, and other gastrointestinal problems. The mind and the gastro system have been proven over and over again to link, and actually the formation. So like even the stress of the body shows up. It can move into neurological disorders, chronic pain, disability, anxiety, PTSD, as well as non-communicable diseases such as hypertension, cancer, and cardiovascular disease. Just the stress of that and what you take on in your body shows up. It shows up throughout the whole course of life from these impacts. Okay, next. They're also at higher risk for developing addiction to alcohol, tobacco, and drugs. So you do see addiction as a common theme on the street, but the mental impact, normally it's like, I don't know how you get to addiction, but there is a coping skill there about how they can numb their pain or what they use to try to get out of their reality. Okay, next one. I did need to bring children into this conversation because the impact on children, not only do you start off with young pregnancies, but children are exposed. So 1 in 15 children are exposed to intimate partner violence each year. This is the mental notes that children have. Next slide. And 90% of those children are eyewitnesses to this violence. So they're exposed to a situation they should never be exposed to, and there's a template on them. Okay, next slide. I hope this makes you think. So I allowed time for conversation, but all of these dynamics show up on the street. And when you talk to somebody about domestic violence, it is a very difficult recovery. Starts off with matters of the heart, perhaps somebody you loved or you thought you loved, and this is what shows up, and how do you recover from that? I personally can say the systems in place are not for the health and healing. And when you leave, what do you leave behind, right? It's not just a house and money and stuff. You leave a part of yourself or a part of your strength. Yeah, I don't have words. But hopefully this puts a dent in what you see on the streets, with understanding, particularly with the recovery with women and also their children in the homelessness. It's hard to recover. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. So we do have some time for conversation. If anybody has questions or comments, please go ahead and raise your hand. I see Jan, you have your hand up.
Patricia's comments are spot on, correct, with large studies, longitudinal studies. Not the slide that she showed about the conditions that people have later on as a result of intimate partner violence are chronic diseases. In other words, once you get the hypertension, obesity, the smoking addiction, the depression, the diabetes, you have to deal with those conditions for the rest of your life. And you have to get insurance to pay for those things. And the rest of us have to pay the premiums also. These are not individual problems. These are not, they are experienced as individuals. And it's a very targeted population, the vulnerable, usually vulnerable younger women, more so than men. There is male partner violence, of course. We all of us pay the consequences of partner violence. And the data that she was showing about young people, ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, when you witness somebody being abused, your risk of those same conditions increases many times fold. So Patricia, I applaud you. You need to keep speaking as much as you can to increase awareness by everybody of the long-term effects of intimate partner violence. Thank you for speaking.
Thank you, Jan. Sarah, you have your hand up.
Yes, and she's only mentioning the physical and mental, struggles, but also the legal. If they decide to report all the legal process that they have to follow and have to deal with many other things, it's hard. I mean, like it's hard, and like Janet mentioned, affects everybody in the community, and you know what, and then that's hard for everyone, and children has to be part of that process too. And I mean, like, you can get other systems involved, like CPS is not just the legal and the police and the CPS, and it creates more trauma and more issues for the women or men that are involved in that relationship.
Thank you, Sarah. Patricia, you have your hand up.
I'm actually going to put some things in the chat statistically when you talk to a larger force. But basically, victims of intimate partner violence lose a total of 8.0 million days of paid work each year. And the cost of intimate partner violence exceeds 8.3 billion per year. This economic impact is upon the community. And also there are, on a typical day, there are more than 20,000 phone calls placed to domestic violence on hotlines nationwide. This is just not a singular problem, an intimate problem. This becomes a community problem. So thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Teresa?
Patricia, I could hear when you're talking to us about this, how important this is to you. I can hear it in your voice, and I can see it in the way you're presenting it. I'm wondering, because I know also that you have become a healthcare advocate, that you do a lot of that kind of work. And I'm wondering, in the time you've been doing that, are you seeing anything in particular that is a good approach? You talked about the fact that the system is not really set up to be a healing system. Do you see something going on that we should be supportive of that is actually working?
I had a no. Okay, what I do see is through this pandemic that the violence has become greater, the reaching out, the resources have become less. The resources are oversaturated, and those that are in the resources aren't being paid or educated enough to understand the dynamics. I also personally want to say, and this is not to provoke or to make things rogue, but there is participants. I can even personally say for myself, you don't know when you're in an intimate violence relationship, but you participate in your own abuse, right? But you don't know that at the time. And that creates dangerous situations for those yourself and those around you. The only way that I got out of my situation is I took nothing. There was nothing that you could take or take from me. I left everything behind what that loss gave me a sense of freedom that I could build upon, you know, but I have physical, yeah, I have chronic conditions and I lost body parts. So like people don't quite see like what happens, and it's very hard to de-thread that situation, particularly when it comes to matters of the heart. And we were kind of brought up in a princess world where I surrendered all my financial identity, which is a huge thing that I think that women need to understand going into relationships and coming out of relationships. The surrender of financial identity and what that means about getting housing and getting your insurance and your bills and things like that when you even come out of the situation when opportunities are available to you. It is overwhelming and it's a difficult subject, but on the national headlines and even here within Washington State and even Pierce County, you see that there are domestic violence happening in these intimate relationships that still today are shocking. And how do you play that? It's also by starting with children and knowing that these behaviors are not acceptable from the first time. So there shouldn't be a second time. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah, Angela, I see you raising your hand.
Sorry, I cannot figure out how to do the raise hand on it. I'm so sorry. A question, Patricia, thank you for your very emotional presentation and impactful presentation. As we go forward with housing and tiny house villages and communities of shelter, is there any plan in place for a designated community, maybe of tiny houses that could be for victims of domestic violence, to where that would create a safe place?
Are you asking me or?
Yeah, do you know if there's in your opinion, would that be a helpful thing, or is there something already in place? Just because, you know, we were just down below the I-705 bridge over the weekend, and I'm talking with all the folks down there, and there's many people in that situation right now. And as we work with trying to help transition them to resources, I'm wondering if there would be, if it would be a good idea if there were an intentional community for victims of domestic violence, like a tiny house village designated for that.
There is an example in King County of a woman only tiny home village, and their success rate is much better. Their healing is much better in a neutral environment. Also that the dynamics, a woman on the street, the dynamics of men continue into more of a, I have no words to explain what you experience on the street with the behaviors that have been allowed, the deviance. So it's sort of, how do you heal when these things are constantly accosted in your face at provider lines as well? Even if you're not trying to look for them and be in them, they show up. So I would personally say the modeling to separate women and to look at those that come out of domestic violence situations so that they can have a soft place to fall, to even think through their situations, you know, and to make next action steps and sort of be a warm hand to hold them in a space that they can think through what happened, because it's like crisis after crisis after crisis. So you're working on a different level, that there hasn't been a soft place to fall. So I would 100 million% recommend that. I have gone through shelter systems and so forth where the resourcing is just at a crisis intervention level and doesn't see the steps and the necessity of the healing to go into the next level so that you don't repeat the pattern, including getting in another relationship with another individual that you've already had a tolerance to accept violence, right? Like this sort of tolerance where I showed the children is a tolerance that's accepted that seems like a norm where it is not, right? And then how do you heal for a longer period that you can keep your housing stabilized, particularly when perhaps you have surrendered all your financial identity to a man, because we're sort of, the world that we're living in is not the world that I was brought up in, correct? Like as far as like what we were fed, and that you don't surrender all your financial identity, you start to build your credit score to get in housing and show a modeling. Also, if you do have children, I do not have children, which made it even more difficult for me to navigate the systems due to the fact of the children priority, which it should be, but it made it a lot more difficult for me. So thank you. Because you do, as a single woman, if you're in a domestic violence situation, that is your life, right? That you're insulated and isolated with a partner and you sometimes can't see straight. And I'll be the first one to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. So any last comments for this section of the meeting? I do urge you, if you have the ability to look at the chat, there are some great resources being listed there by Jennifer and Garrett and others. So really rich chat content this morning. But anyone else who wants to make a point or raise a question? All right, well, thank you very much, Patricia. This has been a rich conversation and I really appreciate you providing the context and the heart around this really important topic that is a major contributor to homelessness in our community.
Thank you for having me, everybody.
All right, so to shift gears just a little bit, we thought it would be a great idea to invite Michelle Burge to talk to us about McKinney-Vento families in the Tacoma School District. So Michelle, I hand the floor over to you.
All right, do you know if I have the ability to share my screen?
I can give you that ability. Just give me one moment. I'll tell you when I've got it set up for you. All right, you should be able to do that now.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Burge, and I work for Tacoma Public Schools, specifically our Tone Resource Center, which is something referred to often, or McKinney-Vento office. I work with a team of 5. Our director is Taj Jensen. He oversees McKinney-Vento in our Title I programs. Our coordinator, Kimberly Mackey. Our elementary and foster care liaison, Christiane Paget. Our secondary liaison, which is Becky, and then I am our housing navigator. And I'm roughly new to the position. I've only been here for a month, but I have a fair understanding of what we've been doing and what we'd like to do going forward. So currently right now we have 1,330 McKinney-Vento students. And of those, 210 are unaccompanied. If you look at our September numbers to our October numbers, you'll see that our numbers increased by 133 students and also 31 unaccompanied youth. So we're definitely seeing the spike, and we're doing our best to serve our students and our families as best we can with services that we provide, and also connecting them with our partnerships. I want to give you kind of a bird's eye view. Tacoma Public Schools is one of our larger districts in Washington State. And we would think that our homeless population is just certain areas, but I want to show you 35 of our 37 elementary schools have McKinney-Vento students in them. There's only 2 elementary schools that don't. That happens to be Washington Hoyt and a smaller specialized school, Madison. We have homeless students in our middle schools, and all of them, and in all of our high schools. We do have some areas that are harder hit. So for our elementary, that's our Bose, McCarver, and Sherman. For our middle schools, Baker, Hilltop Heritage, and Stewart. And then for our high schools, Lincoln, Mount Tahoma, and Foss, with some of our specialized schools like Willie Stewart Academy, Oakland, and TOL. Those are smaller population schools, but higher numbers. And so our hands are full here. Things that we provide, basically, before I even start with the bullets, we do all things ultimately to remove barriers and to assist our students in maintaining their education and being successful in schools, and then also assisting our families. So ensuring that every McKinney-Vento student has access and their education is not disrupted. So being that advocate and removing those barriers for those students. We support school buildings in identifying and supporting the families. We connect our families to housing, by making referrals and helping them navigate the system. We connect our families and provide transportation, school supplies, clothing, food, etc. We have our McKinney-Vento office also serves our foster care students, and so we have a liaison that works in our office that also helps support those students to resources and families, support the families in making sure that those students' education is not disrupted. We have a huge focus on our unaccompanied youth. As you saw, we have, I believe the number was, sorry, real quick, 210, I believe that's what it was. Yeah, 210. And so helping those high school, majority of high school students navigate getting their IDs, birth certificates, social security cards. We recently developed a partnership with Arlington Apartments and helping those kids transition from couch surfing when they become 18 to getting them into those apartments that will help them with jobs and also budgets and helping them into their adult life. We offer dispute resolution. We provide training for our schools and agencies to let them know what McKinney-Vento is and the laws and regulations around that. We're a community advocate, crisis response, and our big thing right now is, and what I've been doing is trying to develop and foster more partnerships, because as you guys know, it takes a village. And so some of our partnerships that we have going on right now, the majority one is Well Springs, the partnership through the TSHEP, and basically helping them navigate and find permanent housing. Green Trike is also a partnership that we're working on right now for our unaccompanied homeless youth. Metro Parks in our after-school programs in extended learning. And then on top of that, we partnership, sorry, let me move this real quick, with communities and schools, and Hope Sparks helps ensure families have access to additional services and help our students be successful in education and also in finance and those other things. So that is pretty much what we do. There's nothing that we necessarily won't do or won't try to do to assist our families with navigating or getting the resources they need to help in their time of crisis and need. I'm willing to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Great. I did see there was a question, Michelle, if you could share the slide deck with folks.
Yes, I can do that. I'm not quite sure how I do that, but I will figure that out and attach it into the chat.
Yeah, you should be able to do that in the chat. Jan.
Michelle, can you give a brief definition of McKinney-Vento, of the law and intent of the law, and how long has it been around? Maybe you don't know, but has it been around for very long?
So yeah, it's been around for a while. Our definition of homeless is a little bit broader than some of our, let's say yesterday, for like I was talking with someone in regards to coordinated entry. So one of the barriers I think for us is that if our families are doubled up, they're not we get out of the coordinated entry. And so that's why our Well Springs partnership is so critical right now, is because those guys, they have a broader definition and can serve those families a little bit more in depth. I'm hoping that through a connection with, I need to find out more information on it, the homeless prevention might be able to serve some of our families who are doubled up in addition to Well Springs. Because right now we have an abundance. I'll give you an example. Last Friday, we had a family of 10 become homeless that Friday. And so a family of 10 is really hard to get quickly housed. For them, they had an income, but they could not come up with first, last months and security deposits, and trying to connect them to resources in the community to prevent them from entering into the homeless system was key. Now, I can proudly report that family actually was housed super quickly. So by the next week, they were already set through a diversion program. But those are the type of things that we deal with on a daily basis. In terms of the law, I have 2 presentations that I'll throw. The thing that is a quick bullet point that kind of goes over that. But basically, the law states that families, students in particular, their education cannot be disrupted because of their homeless situation. And so a lot of times that means they don't have documentation, they're not in the area. And so a lot of times our school has a procedure that they follow. But then, you know, twofold. Sometimes our families don't identify or report that they're homeless, which obviously is problematic. Sometimes the schools are rigid and they're like, well, no, you don't live in our area, so we can't. And so that's where we step in and ensure that, no, yes, they can. And they will be served at that particular school. And transportation won't be a barrier because we'll set that up. And we'll support the school and the family as best we can while they're experiencing that.
Thank you, Michelle. Anyone else with questions? There are a couple of things in the chat, if you can see that, Michelle. Questions about whether folks like
yes,
okay.
Yeah, so, you know, we are working on, we would love to partnership with Tacoma Public Library. I know that I contacted them a while ago to put up some of our documentations. I was actually gonna follow up this week to see if our McKinney-Vento posters and stuff are in each one of those branches. I did actually hear yesterday that
I'll come.
Michelle, okay, thank you.
So we have tried to reach out to Tacoma public libraries to make sure that our literature is up and that, you know, families can see that. I did hear yesterday that the 9 and 10 people for Tacoma Housing Authority is open. And so definitely now knowing that, I'll definitely refer families for the, you know, I told you about the family of 10, but then on that Monday, we had a family of 12. And so, you know, there are lots of families coming to us right now in dire situations. And so I imagine the Tacoma Housing Authority would take some time to get those families housed. And so we need to find some, you know, some temporary fixes, some temporary solutions to, you know, these problems. The huge gap for money. Yeah, and so, you know, I've been taking time to get, you know, trained in the diversion fund. So that has been helpful in terms of being able to assist families immediately who we try to avoid getting them into the homeless system altogether through some diversion funds. But for me, being new to the position is just learning what's out there. And what do I need to do so that we can serve our families better here at Tacoma Public Schools? So if you guys have any information, that's why I'm here every Friday, and I'm serving on some other boards to just find what's out there and then be able to refer our families in the right directions.
Thank you, Michelle. So this has been a rich conversation, both the topics we've covered so far this morning. Let's shift gears. If you have additional questions for Michelle, if you could hang around for a little while, we may see some things dropped in the chat. But I wanted to, on a related note, shift over to Lori Davenport to talk about the topic of the related topic of evictions and how now that eviction protections have expired, What advice do folks from Tacoma Pro Bono have for those who do receive eviction notifications, and what should they do next? So Lori?
Okay. Thank you for having me. And if anybody here who has more information than I or different thoughts to, put in, like Jennifer or Kathleen, just please interrupt me. But the basic message that needs to go out to everybody is that we now have right to counsel in Washington and in Pierce County. That means if you're facing an eviction hearing, you have a right to an attorney, and you have to show up to your hearing. If you haven't done anything up to that point to, answer any notices or contact anybody, still show up, because our attorneys are in the courthouse physically in person every morning. They're catching people who otherwise would be evicted. They're catching people, in fact, where the writ has already been issued, but if they haven't left the home yet, we can still keep them there. So this is really serious business. We have to get the word out about right to counsel. People don't understand it. Know that it's there. Know that if you're low income, you are entitled to get an attorney appointed to defend you. So that's the big one. The other stuff to know is that there's not really a huge impact to the end of the moratorium bridge, because Pierce County was already certified and ready to go as far as being able to engage in the eviction resolution pilot program, which again is still here. It's mandatory for any case that comes through that is for non-payment of rent. In other words, the landlord still cannot bring a case for non-payment of rent without going through the ERPP. Hopefully the landlord and or the tenant will apply for rental assistance as part of that. We're beginning to see, we're not having a huge number of evictions yet. Nobody knows yet really what's going to happen. But again, we do have just cause, and that's also huge. That means there are approximately 16 different reasons that have to be there in order for the landlord to evict someone. Previously, it only required 20 days notice with no reason. So that is also huge. And that, of course, plays in with right to counsel. So people really do actually have the ability to exercise defenses much better than they used to. We are seeing landlords try to get around the ERPP by potentially doing things like not accepting rental assistance, even though it's been applied for and it's out there. Rental assistance does come with a few restrictions that people don't like, and it's still taking approximately 3 months to get that out. And they're trying to, find ways to dodge that and get in under the wire and just maybe get in a new tenant who can pay and just not wait for it. So that's going on. We're working with Center for Dialogue and Resolution to circumvent those issues. But basically, know that if you are behind in rent because of COVID, rental assistance is there, the ERPP is there, a certification from, Center for Dialogue and Resolution has to be issued to the court before an eviction can be filed if it's a non-payment of rent case. That has to happen. So that's, as CDR calls it, that's a big speed bump. But people need to know about it. Don't leave your place. Stay in your home, as we've been saying for months and months and months. And if anybody has anything else to add, please let me know. Hey, Valerie, you got them all in the chat. Did you type all that? That's the other thing you need to know. Valerie and I and our HJP staff we have 16 new things that we're doing, pop-up events with Pierce County Libraries. This is really exciting. In addition, we're going to be at Salishan with THA on the 18th, and we potentially are going to be at the Tribe as well. We have, and we're working on a schedule with Tacoma Public Libraries. So we are out there. And we get to be inside, which was not the case recently. So we'll be warm. So any questions or contributions?
All right, I'm not seeing any questions.
All right.
Well, thank you, Lori, for that perspective. And again, the key piece that people should not be self-evicting at this point if they get a notice that they should be staying in their housing and working through the process.
And come to your hearing if you have an eviction hearing. We will be there.
Awesome. Okay, so we're almost on time on our agenda. I wanted to have us at least have a short opportunity for breakout discussions this morning. And as I was looking at my calendar, I was thinking about the fact that before we know it, the holiday season is going to be here, and we traditionally start talking at the beginning of November about what kind of resources are going to be made available to those that we work with in the community during the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday season. So what I wanted to do is to create some time for folks to share in small chat groups what you personally or what your organization is planning to do to help serve those who are homeless during the upcoming Thanksgiving season. If you do take notes and want to share those in the chat, we can start a running list of resources. I anticipate we'll probably have a longer conversation as a group about this before Thanksgiving, but thought we could get the ball rolling today. So let me set up our breakout rooms, and I will just put folks in rooms of 5 or 6, and we will spend the next 10 minutes getting to know each other and sharing what we plan to do for the Thanksgiving holiday to help people. And away we go. All right, so everybody's back in the room.
Hey Rob, I have a thought / question / idea, but I think my Sheila's gonna be she's gonna be like, are you volunteering me? And I am. But if everybody could put in the chat their amazing Thanksgiving resources, as we always do, I'll have Sheila copy those all down, and we'll put that on a list and send that out to the coalition.
Perfect.
Does that sound good, Rob?
That's an awesome offer. Thank you.
That's why she's called the fearless leader.
All right, so we can shift to government updates, although I see Patricia, you have your hand up, so let's go to you first.
I just wanted to just speak of like a legislation thing coming up the pipeline in regards to mental and behavioral health. Client outcomes are sort of more going to like a state level versus like stay in county. There's some huge changes on like grievances, and right now if you're like on Medicaid, if there's any sort of provider or if there's something that you don't feel like you're getting the outcomes, you're not getting the treatments, that it goes right back to the insurance. And now it's even going further, that it'll go back to the state, overcompassing. So the controls and levers will be taken out of the county and out of those sort of to meet the needs of those that are like homeless. Like it just creates more barriers. I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Patricia. So let's shift gears. I hope everybody had a good conversation. I know it was shorter than usual, but we had a lot to cover this morning. So shifting to government updates, do we have, Tegan, are you able to give an update from the city of Tacoma? Or did you have to disappear? Let's see. Tegan might not be able to respond. She said she was having some work done at her house. So let's try to come back to Tegan. Jeff, I see you on screen. Would you like to offer some updates from Pierce County Human Services?
Sure. We have quite a few new things, I'll call them, going on right now. We're working to release several funding opportunities for some money to be put into the community to address homelessness. The first thing that we have coming out, I'll just start with our routine stuff. Hopefully before the end of the year, we'll be putting out a funding opportunity for our homeless housing program funding that we do every year for contracts that start in July of every year. That's a large funding opportunity that covers everything we do, from shelter to rapid rehousing to permanent supportive housing. So that's going to be coming out. At the same time, we're releasing a funding opportunity here soon for safe parking. Pierce County Council has provided $450,000 for safe parking. It'll be a little less than that for 2022, but we're looking for a provider to operate safe parking. And this award will be from January 1, 2022 through December 31, 2022 for a full 12-month cycle. So there is a big chunk of money that's available that can be used to provide safe parking. Another chunk of money that we're still trying to figure out, or I'm still trying to figure out, is $750,000 that council provided to our department. The way it's written is awkward, so it's potentially going to be $750,000 for, oh, my mind just went blank, tiny homes. Some sort of tiny home project is what my understanding is. We are also putting out roughly $5 million that we received from the State Department of Commerce. And these activities, that $5 million are for hotel sheltering, rapid rehousing, and outreach services of the eligible activities that can be funded. And those funds will be available between early 2022 and June 30th of 2023. There's big money coming soon, multiple funding processes that we're undertaking. So keep your eye on the lookout because all those are coming out really soon. On another note, we just finalized our funding opportunity for coordinated entry. And we're pleased to announce the agencies that will be receiving those funds moving forward for many, many years. The screening function of coordinated entry will be done by United Way 211, who currently already does screening. And these are for contracts that start January 1 for January 1 through December of 2022. The diversion prioritization component of coordinated entry will be done by Associated Ministries and Catholic Community Services, who are existing diversion and prioritization components of that work. We've added KWA, Korean Women's Association, as a DV site to target domestic violence survivors. And we've also added Reach Center as a site to do youth and young adult targeting for their program. And we also gave it a little bit of funding for diversion prioritization to United Way 211, who will do the screening for the whole system. So that's kind of the breakout of how coordinated entry will work moving forward as of January 1. We are planning to release a funding opportunity sometime in early 2022. I'm sorry, I'm saying 2021. It's 2022. Sorry, 2022. The new year coming. We will be releasing a grant, a notice of funding opportunity in early 2022 to additionally expand that coordinated entry work to provide more resources to like shelters and people who are entering our system through shelters to have that coordinated entry contact and that diversion conversation there versus having to try to, once they're there, get connected to the other agencies. So there will be new money coming out early next year for shelters to apply for, to expand so that there's more access routes for people to get connected to coordinated entry. That's a lot. All of that is really, really a lot. It's yeah, it's a lot, and much of it is above our routine work that we do. So we have a master email list. If you're not on our master email list for solicitations and bids, you can let me know and we can add you to the list. And anytime that our department puts a notice of funding out for anything that we do, you would automatically receive that notification. So yeah, that's my update for today.
Thank you, Jeff. That is a lot of great resources going out in the community. So I understand Tegan is available now. Tegan, would you like to offer some updates from the city of Tacoma?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. It's good to see everybody. So I've got a few updates. So the first one I know we started talking about on the streets this morning was about the Evergreen encampment. So I wanted to provide the efforts that our homeless outreach team has been doing. So I know they've been visiting the site. When they were there yesterday, what they reported was there's 3 tents, and they were able to talk to 3 individuals. One of them was indicating that his friend was going to help him move. I did ask to see if that had happened. That was supposed to have happened yesterday. I haven't received an update on that, but if I do, I'll send it to everyone. There's another individual that has not accepted any supportive services, but they continue to work with him. And then we did receive a report that Evergreen has given permission to the individual. We do know his name, but I'm leaving it out for confidentiality. The one that has the plants and structures and an automobile, that they have said that he can remain on the property. So that was our most report on that, is what we've heard. Some of our program updates is, so Safe Streets and the Low Income Housing Institute will be hosting a community meeting to discuss temporary enhanced shelter at the Comfort Inn. That property is located at 8620 South Hosmer. And that's going to be on November 22nd at 6:30 p.m. And the meeting will discuss the expected operations of the shelter, security, and other services to be provided on the site. And I have a flyer that I'll put into the chat for everyone to have. It has more details. We also have been working with the health department and the medical reserve to support some efforts around COVID and CDC stuff. I know we were helping Shiloh earlier this week. So I just wanted to highlight that as well, because that stuff is still happening throughout the shelters. And the final one I want to share is that I have resigned from my position with the city. Next Wednesday will be my last day working. So I wanted to share that with all of you, because I've spent so much time with you, and I've had such a lovely time advocating for your work and fighting for the things that we all want to see to happen in this community. And it's been such a pleasure and honor to work with all of you. So I wanted to share that with you. And those are all my updates.
We are sorry to hear that, Tegan, but happy for you. I'm sure you're going on to something that is good. I hope.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, you're welcome.
See, there's questions.
Yeah. Teresa.
So Tegan, I'm just surprised and disheartened to hear that you're leaving. I hope you are going to something. Can you even say where you're going?
Well, I'm always cooking something up, so I'm sure they'll hear from me soon.
Okay, that sounds good. But I hope that there's some overlap between you and the next person, because you carry a whole lot of information in your head, and you've been a good partner to us. So thank you for all you've done and for all you will do wherever you go. We'll miss you.
Thanks, Teresa. I'm going to miss you all too.
Maureen.
Tegan, you've done amazingly well in extraordinarily difficult situations, and we are all grateful for that. So, yeah, go well.
Thanks, Maureen. That means a lot. So much love to all of you.
All right. Well, on that bummer of a notice, we will shift over. So I'm going to paste some information into the chat. Valerie had to leave early. She couldn't stay for the second half of the meeting. So I will paste her update regarding rental assistance in the chat. The next item that we had is actually, I don't know, Jody, if you had anything you wanted to present beyond our 10-minute conversation. So if you want to just move right into that, we can do that too. And I don't know if Maureen wanted to help set that up or how we wanted to do this.
Well, if I could jump in and then I'll hand off to the very smart and talented people, because I'm super good at that. I thought I was going to be riding the wave of Jeff talking about chunks of money. And I thought, ooh, I get to follow the money guy and we're really upbeat. And then, yeah, now I get the Debbie Downer section of the agenda after a very valued partner is leaving. So even though I don't come with chunks of money, I come with a lot of really smart people who, like Maureen says, like to cause good trouble. So that is awesome. And one thing I wanted to let you all know that we did this last week. We always have a yearly winter weather and summer weather kind of seminar where we bring all emergency managers and public safety types together, in this case virtually. But for this year's agenda, we made sure we added on Jeff came in and spoke on behalf of Human Services to talk about the topic of supporting the unhoused and those who are housed but may be exponentially more vulnerable. So this will be a standing part of our agenda now, because we thought keeping this topic in front of all public safety personnel, this is something we all need to address in our work. So that is going to be a standing part of our yearly seminars. And it was really well received. And of course, Jeff did a fabulous job. So we did that. And in addition, one thing I promised to all of you was we would, number one, participate in these meetings, and you would always have someone who has a level of authority to make decisions. So while it might be me or Amy, the really super smart and talented person is our planning supervisor, Regine Creel. And she is on the line right now, and I'm going to hand it over to her and to Maureen. They are causing good trouble, but we need your help in looking at really building a comprehensive emergency plan that supports all of your hard work. We need to define something. So without going further, I'm going to go ahead and defer to Maureen first. And Maureen, you and Regine can do the tag team thing. Sound good?
It sounds great. Thanks, Jody.
All right, you bet.
And that's great news about including people who are living unsheltered and who are vulnerably housed in the annual planning. Folks, that's a big deal. All right. These are big deals. Those of you who've been around for a while know that there was a time when there was not even a courtesy relationship between Pierce County Department of Emergency Management and the folks in this meeting. So we have come a long way thanks to Jody and everybody's work. So one of the things that happened out of the heat wave was the coalition calling for an after action review. And Pierce County DEM, the Department of Emergency Management, stepped up and said, actually, this is our job. And so they invited not just the usual county folks, but representatives from the coalition. And so the coalition decided that Jan Runbeck and Monique Brown and I would represent the coalition, because Jan and I had carried the load on the water loudly, made a lot of noise, got a lot of water, and Monique could bring the specific breadth of experience around the work that she did and her people did around the county. So we did go through the after action review. We did report back on that to everybody. We did complete the survey that was offered as a result of the review. And we did review the draft report. And so that's where it is. So one of the things that grew out of this is a very small working group where I represent the coalition. I'm the only non-governmental person in this group. And we are working on those issues that we brought forward. Is how should the Pierce County Department of Emergency Management's emergency response plan address, in our case, the needs of people who are unsheltered, whether they are in shelters or literally living outside. And so at our most recent meeting, I was asked some questions that I thought it was best for you all to answer. And so we're going to take just a few minutes. And so I'm just going to give you the questions, and then Regine's going to take over. And please put as much as you can into the chat. So when I think about emergencies, I don't just think about snowmageddon and blizzards and earthquakes, things like that. Clearly, we need response for people who are experiencing homelessness in that arena. But I think we also need what I call the sort of ordinary emergencies. It's the 1 inch of rain in a day. It's the constant 40-degree temperature. It's the wind at 30 miles an hour. It's the gusts, at 50 miles an hour if you're outside in an encampment. It's things like, what's the temperature at which a child should absolutely not be living in a car? All those things from your day in and day out work. So it may be that there's a part of emergency planning that is specific to the sort of ordinary emergencies that we live with. So what would trigger, what triggers, is it a response, whether that's an official Pierce County DEM response that maybe we can get all of these other jurisdictions to agree to? What triggers the sort of ordinary emergency responses that for our people are life and death in many cases? So then there's that. And then the Pierce County DEM has offered us access to their system, which is called PC Warn. And this is where they take the information from the National Weather Service and they put out what they call to their partners as a situational awareness. They're not going to put this on the listserv. They'll have like 2 or 3 people from the coalition will be the recipients, and then we'll need to put out on the listserv. So what is it? How do we translate whatever it is they provide to what is useful for us? All right, so that's a piece of it. And then the last piece is, does everybody actually have an emergency operations plan? And if not, how do we help people get them? And so that's everything from what if the power goes off, more than a few hours, just the storms are going to be more intense. That's what we know about climate change. So we're going to think of this in terms of getting through the winter and then go beyond. So I'm going to turn this to Regine, and it's your show, Regine.
Okay, well, thank you, Jody, and thank you, Maureen, for the setup. I think you did a really good job of capturing a lot of thoughts we've had over the last couple of weeks. So the last couple of weeks I've been with you all, I've mentioned that we've been, we've now had our second planning meeting with this group that we've started meeting together. And so the way that we kind of describe, we were trying to lay out some things this week. So what does this actually look like, right? So I think about this kind of like an onion. And so a lot of you all are out there providing, all of you are out there providing these services day in and day out. And to me, you're like the center of this onion. And there comes a point in time when there's an incident that happens, maybe it's weather. In this case, we are leaning forward on planning for cold weather because that's the season we're in, but eventually we're going to plan for all the things. So let's say there's cold weather that comes in. And so there comes a point in time when you're looking for support beyond the normal support that you might be looking for, right? So you might be looking to human services like this summer. Hey, we need some water. Hey, we need to figure out a way to cool people. In the winter, that might be, we need a way to warm people or a place for them to go. And so you're at the center of the onion, and you're the next level of support that you might reach out to would be those human services partners or neighborhood community services partners. And then when they get to a level where they're like, hey, we've provided all the support we can provide, we actually need support to support, right? Then they reach out to their emergency management partners. And so that's really where we come in. And one of the things that we really heard loud and clear is that I like to call them thresholds, but triggers is the word that was used. So those thresholds for us, when we are taking action and we are considering it like, okay, we're heading into something where we need to actually start mobilizing some things and doing some planning on weather, they're based on notifications that we're getting from the National Weather Service. And so, when we start seeing temperatures around freezing, it's going to be going on for a couple of days. It's coming with rain or snow or ice, maybe wind, right? So we start looking at that mix, and that really kind of drives us into action. However, we hear you and we recognize the fact that it happens sooner for you all, and for the folks that you guys work with day in and day out. And so, as Maureen said, we're really trying to identify where are those thresholds when you are starting to beef up, you're starting to look for more support than you would normally be asking for from your human services partners. or neighborhood community services partners. And any ideas you guys have, please feel free to put them in the chat, because that's really what we're trying to do, is identify some of those thresholds. Like, when is it just like, hey, this is beyond normal rain in the Pacific Northwest, we're actually needing to start looking at taking action. So if you have thoughts on that, we would love to see them in the chat. If you're human services, I'm thinking about Jeff because I think he's still here. If you're human services, neighborhood community services, and you're thinking, hey, where's the threshold when I'm going to start getting all these questions and requests for support? Where's that threshold when you're needing support from your emergency management partners or other departments, right? So again, any ideas on that, please feel free to put that into the chat, because we are starting to actively collect that. The second piece that Maureen spoke about is our PC Warn system. And it's really part of a larger system. It's Everbridge is the company that it's through. We have PC Alert and PC Warn. PC Alert is our public facing side of the house. And so this is where folks can go and they can register to receive notifications. So folks can opt in for weather notifications, or they can just only want emergency notifications. And there's some different things that they can do, but they go in and they create an account and they register. So one of the findings in the after action review that Maureen mentioned was really the need to do more targeted outreach to get folks registered for PC Alert. And we're going to be working with you all on that, because we need to kind of get the word out for anyone who can register and wants to register, to get them into the system so they'll receive notifications when they go out. But the other side of that is the PC Warn side, and that's what Maureen was talking about. So with PC Warn, that's really internal for us. And so we have, within that system, we have different groups. We have fire commanders and law commanders and cities and town leadership and schools districts and health partners. And so, and they're grouped by their type of agency they are. And so what we were talking about on Tuesday was, why don't we consider creating a group where we can put providers and human service partners into this group, so that, when we see a message coming that might impact folks that you're working with day in and day out, we can send we can include you in the notification. And so we feel like that could help, but we would love to hear if you feel like that would help. So again, we're just trying to, one of the comments that came up a couple of different times was you all needing to get the information and needing to get it sooner rather than later. And so, if we can share it with you directly rather than having it have to filter through the pipeline or maybe never get to you and you hear about it on the news, I think it could be beneficial. So Maureen has my contact info. I think, Maureen, maybe what we could do is, if folks want to be a part of this and they're interested, maybe you could collect some information for me, please, since you're kind of connected with this group, and we'll get that PC Warn group set up. I don't know. What do you guys think? Thumbs up? I'm looking at faces. So, okay. All right. So Rob's like, yeah, do it. So we'll just do it. So if you're interested in folks from your agency being signed up into this PC Warn system, I'm going to ask you to direct your contact info to Maureen, and she'll get it over to me. We have another meeting next week. I forget what day it is because I'm not sure what today is, but it's next week. So we will get all that set up. So that last piece that she mentioned about emergency operations plans. And so this is where the planner prepper in me, I've been doing preparedness, emergency management preparedness for a really long time. And part of that is making sure that at the base of what we all do, we can still function and do what we need to do, right? And so for us, we call that continuity of operations. And so I wouldn't, it would be not me if I didn't take a minute to say, you all should take a minute and make sure that you're good to go. You should take a minute and make sure that you have what you need. Maybe make sure you have water in your vehicle if you have a vehicle, or in a backpack if that's what you keep with you. Just make sure you have what you need. And then take a look at your agency or organization. Do you guys have a plan? Do you know how you're going to continue to operate and provide services when the weather stinks, or we have an earthquake? I'm knocking on wood, okay? But I hate to be that person, but I have to say that to you, because you all do incredibly important work. And I know so many of you are very scrappy and just, you make things work. And I love that. But sometimes we need to lean forward and have those plans for our agencies set a little more, make sure we have the contracts in place that we need, make sure we have supplies we need, just in case there aren't any. So give that some thought. And I see Maureen asked, does anyone have a continuity of operations plan that they could share? So if you have one for your agency that you're willing to share, in emergency management, it's all about, like, don't recreate the wheel. We're probably the biggest plan thieves there are out there. If there's a good idea that you can glean from, share it, learn from it. Let's see, can you link with aging and disability resources? Yes. So Sally, your question about aging and disability resources. Yes. So we are, Kim Peterson is part of our group that meets. And so we are including her in this process. We're having a separate meeting to create a group within PC Warren to communicate with providers, and we got a whole other separate thing going. So yes, we will get that moving. And I see Teresa, I see Jody's answered you. We can definitely get a template out. So if nobody has an example of some type of continuity of operations plan or just emergency operations plan, that if you have one that you can share, please do. If nobody has one, we have templates we can provide. So I think I've made it through all three. Rob, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Oh, Jody just unmuted. I'm gonna stop.
Hey, I wanted to mention one thing, because I saw in the chat there was the question about our 911 calls triggers for DEM action. And one thing I want to be really clear on, and why this planning is so important, is emergency management, both from the county and city. So we're a safety net. So that's why, Regine, working with all of you to really we're kind of putting some guardrails on. So we don't have, I wish things being labeled as emergencies came with, like, the chunks of money Jeff talked about and additional resources, but it doesn't really work that way. So it's kind of back to that onion example. So you have your, whatever normal is these days. So you have a day-to-day situation. Then you have a situation where things are, it's hard to define what an emergency is, because frankly, everybody has them every day. So it's tough to define. But you have what would be normal day-to-day. You have something that would prompt an increase in service delivery. So the weather is bad, which will be every weekend now until April. So you have those situations that necessitate more service delivery, but aren't necessarily a crisis yet. So at that point, that's when, for example, when the weather was getting nasty this last weekend, of course, Jeff is on speed dial for us. So it's like, hey, what do you need us to do? What can we do? And of course, he said, hey, here's where we have beds available. Here's where we have expansion capacity. I think we're good for what we're facing. So that's kind of that middle ground. But then depending on the input we get from all of you, there becomes a point where we jump in, whether it's multiple days at a freezing temperature, whatever it is we define, then we kind of come in. So it's not about us creating something separate. It's about creating a network around what is already there. So we go into action when other entities become overwhelmed. So the difference in that conversation I used as an example with Jeff, if Jeff would have said, Jody, shelters are full, we have maximized all of our capacity, we don't have anything left, that's where we want to say, okay, so here's our plan to be that network to come in beyond that. So I hope that kind of helps. It's never as precise as we would like it to be. So while 911 calls would play into that, there's numerous other factors, and whatever we define as a group, you know, there's always squishy lines on that. And we would navigate the situations a little differently. But if we have some of those just general guardrails, that helps. So I hope, and Regina, correct me now if I've said anything wrong, because that's what she does. Are we good, Regine? Did that kind of help? Okay.
Yep, I think that's great. I think that's great. Thanks. Thank you for that.
Sure.
So Rob, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know you guys have a packed agenda, but if there are any other direct questions that you have for us, we can always connect offline too.
Great. And if folks do have additional questions, please go ahead and use the chat. And we can pick those up and relay them to Regine if need be, or gather them up and have Maureen pass them along. So thank you so much for your time and efforts. All right, so in doing the government updates, running through those, I neglected to, or forgot to ask Jenny from the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department to offer her updates for this week. So Jenny, do you have time to do that now?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Wow, lots of great information today. I will try to keep this short because I don't have a ton of new information since we met last. We are still, we still have pretty good availability of isolation and quarantine spaces right now. As of yesterday, late afternoon, 21 beds were available to folks. So if those, if shelters are coming up with issues where folks need safe places to quarantine or isolate, that is available through our new contractor, Aristo, who's doing some great care coordination from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Placements done until 8 p.m. So hopefully that's been helpful for folks. Immunization work, we actually in the last few days, we with the planning team over here scheduled a bunch of shelter events, which is really exciting. So we're having monthly to twice monthly COVID vaccine events at Tacoma Rescue Mission, at Adams, at Nativity, at Alzheimer Church, at the new Thames location, and a few others. And then there's lots and lots of community events going on all the time that I'm trying to push that information out to folks as well. We are also, as many of you, most of you hopefully will be aware, there has been some direct to encampment vaccine outreach. Greater Lakes has been partnering with Medical Teams International for the past few months, actually doing amazing weekly vaccine outreach outside the city of Tacoma. But our team here at TPCHD also partnered with Tacoma Rescue Mission and Comprehensive Life Resources street outreach teams to do 3 efforts so far here within the city of Tacoma at some of the big encampments. And I'm looking to organize a few more of those before the end of the year. Unfortunately, we are unable to sort of sustain those efforts. Unfortunately, we're unable to sustain those efforts, but I'm doing my best to get a few more things happening. We are working with Medical Reserve Corps to coordinate some flu vaccine clinics as well. Big news in vaccines, of course, is lots and lots of folks eligible for boosters. I've had folks in this group share with me today that they got their booster shot, which is exciting. I'll drop information in the chat to help folks navigate that. 5 to 11-year-olds are now eligible, and we're seeing a lot of excitement in the community around that as well. Any questions for me?
Not seeing any hands go up.
Cool. Feel free to reach out and I will drop some links in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you, Jenny.
Mhm.
All right, so the next item on our agenda, Rosemary, did you want to offer a short update on coalition representatives?
Thank you, Rob. Yes, this will be short. Last April, we put together a selection process for representatives that might represent the coalition in various agencies and groups. And we've appointed a number of people through polls and votes of this group to represent us. And we have 7 or 8 folks who've been participating in either short-term or ongoing kinds of commitments. We had a request recently for someone to represent us on the Pierce County Sex Trafficking Task Force. And we were moving that along and realized that our process had some lacks in it. So there's a small group of us that are called the Governance Work Group, and it's open to anyone who might wish to join us. We're trying to think about how to be clear in our communications and clear in what we expect of each other. Since we are a network, a coalition of folks who represent either as officially represent our groups or informally because of our interest, we are already representing ourselves a lot in our group. And so we wanted to be sure that before we ask someone to take on a role, that we were really clear about our expectations of what that brings to the coalition and what sort of way the person would represent the coalition. So we are recommending that for now, we not take in any requests from outside groups that are not already the coalition to have a representative person, but that we invite everyone who wants to have greater collaboration with the coalition in the work that they are doing to join us here and to request, and we really encourage this, to request opportunities to present as we have had others at the meeting today. And so if you have an interest in that, Rob is always he's a good person to contact. And Teresa Power-Judas has been responsible for the spotlight sessions to invite people to come for short presentations. So I know both of them would really appreciate hearing from you, and we really would appreciate understanding more about your work. So that's our plan for now, is to talk with all the folks who currently represent us on any group or to any group to make sure it's clear what they are doing and how they represent us, and then have a clearer sense to present to you all later. That's a revised process. So that's it for now.
Thank you, Rosemary. So our next update, we carved out a little bit of time for, yes. Did I hear somebody else speaking? Oh, okay. Technology. So our next update section is from the Safe Sites for All group. Jan, did you have anything to share today?
Well, we're just so excited with this new influx of money from the county that we can't stand it. We're just thrilled, absolutely thrilled that Safe Parking Network has gone from a concept being advocated by a few of us loudly, yes, I love the icons there, to now an accepted program. From a public health perspective, I find it appalling that I have to advocate for people to stay in their cars, but that's the reality of this situation. It is safer to be in your car than it is on the street. So thank you, Pierce County. Thank you for all of you who have activated or who have advocated for safe parking. And I'm pleased to announce that we do have a new member out in the county. And so we will be working closely with partners who can be fiscal agents, contract management folks, and we're gonna make this program bigger and better until we can end street homelessness for all. So anybody that has a comment or a concern, please join us Monday at noon on our Zoom meeting.
Thank you, Jan. And yes, it is exciting to hear that safe parking is right there with funding for next year. So that's fantastic. So the next item I see on our agenda is any coalition committee updates. Were there any additional committee updates that we wanted to share with the larger group? Maureen?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to suspend the housing committee for right now while we sort of take a breath and find out what's happening. I'll keep the listserv. So if you want to be on the housing committee listserv, I'll keep using the listserv, but just in terms of meetings, just for right now.
Thank you, Maureen.
No, thank you.
And I don't think we had anything else, did we, Rosemary? No, okay. Great, so let's shift over to just good trouble announcements, things that we wanted to, well, actually, I don't want to skip over this, the Homeless Memorial Reminder. Ed, do you want to share a reminder about what's coming up this Sunday?
Yeah, thank you. At 3 o'clock, don't come at 4, you'll be in the dark. So please come out at 3 o'clock on Sunday at People's Park. We'll be remembering 28 people that died in August and September of this year. That's basically what I have. Hopefully it will not be raining. It will be a nice sunny day, 70 degrees would be wonderful. I will post the information in the chat. And anyone who would like to help, my phone number is in that information that I'll be posting.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
And that's 3 p.m. at People's Park.
People's Park on Sunday.
Perfect. All right. And now we will move on to announcements for the good of the order. So this section of the meeting is just, if you have something that would benefit the full coalition hearing about it, this is an opportunity to share those items. So I open the floor. Angela, I see you raising your hand.
I promise to figure out how I can do that electronically.
It's hard on a phone, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm on my phone doing this too, but I just wanted to share kind of something that was very exciting that happened, and that there's a lot of energy, and I would call it good trouble. There's been a lot of citizens, a lot of people in the community who want to help and haven't really known how exactly. And so we formed Tacoma Safe to just try and just do what we can to help alongside all the missions that are happening, but then also to just try and help in ways that we didn't see necessarily. If there was something we could possibly do to just go do it. So there's an amazing woman we have in Tacoma named Virginia, who lived across the street from an encampment on the east side. And she started adopting the encampment. And so she would bring waters and blankets and got to know the folks. And through that relationship building, just citizen to, friend to friend, she was able to motivate the people in the encampment to clean up their areas. And it really had a very positive effect on the encampment and the people living there. So she's part of Tacoma Safe. And with the 705, it seemed like that was really a significantly hurting area. And so we went this last weekend and just to see if there was some way we could help the folks down there and help kind of motivate and support them in cleaning up the encampment down there. And what really, I would say, magic happened. And it's a lot due to Virginia, this woman who I would love to be on this call. And I would, if that's okay, I would love for her to come and be part of it. She's had a lot of suffering in her life and a lot of paths that have enabled her to have great impact with the folks who are dealing with being unhoused under the 705 bridge. So as of the city contractor for garbage removal came, the folks, we brought shovels and we brought brooms and kind of alongside of them, supported them and big black garbage bags, and they cleaned it out so incredibly for days. They worked so hard and they felt so good about their living space. And so I just wanted to share kind of that good news of what happened. And it didn't cost anything. It wasn't, going in and controlling it. It was just trying to inspire and encourage them, and they did it. And there's a hope that through building relationship and building trust, that we can hopefully go, to the different encampments and just try and encourage that, bringing them the tools, bringing brooms and shovels, taking the garbage away. And so without trying to, step on any toes or do anything, we just want to help in ways that possibly we can, and just everyone work together. And I just want to say a lot of good feelings and trust happened this weekend, and it's exciting, the hope of everyone's presentation today. It's exciting about the funding that's out there for all the missions, because I do think we're on the verge of ending homelessness in the streets and giving better choices for wraparound resources and help. So thank you.
Thank you, Angela, and thank you to everyone who helped you going into that encampment. Just so you know, there are a number of folks in this group who've been doing that kind of work over the years. And I know Jeffrey would definitely share that people completely love, people do care about where they live.
Yes.
The big challenge is that we just don't provide resources for them to be able to clean up their spaces or places for them to safely go to the bathroom. So,
yeah.
Maureen, I see you have your hand up.
I do. So next week, I'll only be on the call part of the time because with Rob, I'm on the policy committee, and Cynthia Stewart also for the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, and we'll be meeting for a couple hours Friday morning, continuing to refine the agenda. This is the statewide agenda around homelessness and housing. So if you have, we're going to focus on what's called the support agenda. So those are issues that are brought forward by our partners across the state. And if you have issues that are specific to the folks with whom you are working, or wherever you fall into this arena, please send me those sometime between now and Friday so that I can bring those to the table. So, and then everybody remember, we did have an agreed upon ARPA priority use list, and I'm pulling that out, and I'm starting to put the columns in about where the money's going. And right now it looks to me like we've got the beds. We asked for 1,000 beds at $100,000 each out of the ARPA money, because that would be hotel room purchased, not rented. So we've got the Comfort Inn, and we'll see what else we can add in columns. So thanks.
Thank you, Maureen. Anyone else with kind of good of the order items for today?
Rob, it's Sheila. I just put my contact information in the chat. If anybody else learns of any holiday resources, to just send it to me, and I'm compiling a list. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you for doing that. All right, so we've only got a couple, excuse me, minutes left in today's meeting. I do like to carve out time for folks to offer some feedback on today's meeting. What went well, what didn't go well, what was missing, what would we like to see next week? If you have something you'd like to share, you can unmute yourself and share it verbally. You can also put it in the chat if you have an interest. And we'll sit with awkward silence for a moment. Rosemary?
I just wanted to say that having these informational sessions with resources in the community is really, really useful. And I really applaud people coming forward to do that. And I know we will make time for this continuingly, but it is a feature that I appreciate very much.
Thank you, Rosemary. Anyone else? Okay, so I want to wish everybody a happy Friday. Have a good and safe weekend. And if you are interested in helping us plan next week's meeting, we will have a planning session right after this. So you can just stay on the call. Have a great weekend, everybody.